Trump actually reenacting the Madison Square Garden rally in 1939.
And we'll see Trump reenacting the Madison Square Garden rally in 1939. What an interesting historical point that Hillary Clinton points out. Of course, she says she writes about this in her book, Shilling for More Money.
President Franklin Roosevelt was appalled that neo-Nazis, fascists in America were lining up to essentially pledge their support for the kind of government that they were seeing in Germany.
She said President Roosevelt was appalled. Was he really? Well, Hillary Clinton on President Trump holding a political rally at Madison Square Garden today, October 27th, 2024. Seriously? Nazis, Hillary? So that means that anyone who holds an event or at least a political rally at Madison Square Garden is a Nazi sympathizer. Eh, Hill? Does that make you a Nazi? While Hillary Clinton desperately seeks to lie about Trump and tens of millions of Americans whom she considers a basket of deplorables, and Barry Obama whines about clinging to God and their guns, her pathetic attempt to get even will fall on deaf ears. The Garden has hosted both Democratic and Republican national conventions since the 19th century. Since it first opened its doors in 1879, Madison Square Garden has been a celebrated center of New York life, as the home of the New York Knicks, the Rangers, professional boxing, college basketball, and so much more. The Garden's most memorable sports events include the 1970s Knicks NBA Championship, the Rangers' 1994 Stanley Cup Championship, and the fight of the century between Muhammad Ali and Joe Frazier back in 1971. Now, it's not the only building that's been called Madison Square Garden. While the first two gardens were located near the current Madison Square, where Broadway and 5th Avenue meet at 23rd Street, the third was northwest of that neighborhood on 8th Avenue and West 50th Street. Now, that opened in 1925 and hosted both Herbert Hoover and Franklin Delano Roosevelt in their campaigns. Wait, FDR? I thought he hated Nazis. Why would he go to a Nazi arena? Madison Square Garden has also been the site of the 1924, 1976, 1980, and 1992 Democratic National Conventions, as well as the 2004 Republican National Convention in the aftermath of the 9/11 attacks. Now, it's interesting. 4 Democratic National Committee conventions over the past century, 3 since the Nazis rose to power in Germany. That means that 23% of the Democratic Party's last 13 conventions have been held at Madison Square Garden. Does that make the Democrats a quarter Nazi? Of course not. Folks, the Democratic Party that met at the second Madison Square Garden in 1924 for its convention was deeply divided over immigration, prohibition, and the growing prominence of the Ku Klux Klan. A Democratic Party opposed to immigration and in league with the Klan. Well, that sounds about right. Now, what she's talking about here as far as Nazis and communists, more than 20,000 people attended a February 20th, 1939 rally at the Garden organized by the German-American Bund, a pro-Nazi group that hung swastikas alongside a huge portrait of George Washington. Police estimated that 16,000 to 17,000 people attended a communist rally at the Garden just a week after the Bund gathering. And what does Hillary have to say about communists at Madison Square Garden? Not much, apparently. Madison Square Garden has also hosted countless other events, including landmark visits from Pope John Paul II in 1979 and Pope Francis in 2015, as well as Frank Sinatra's main event concert back in 1974. Now, the current Madison Square Garden complex, located at 31st and 33rd Streets and 7th and 8th Avenues on Manhattan's west side, opened on February 11th, 1968, with a salute to the United Services Organization, or USO. That was hosted by Bob Hope and Bing Crosby, well-known Nazi sympathizers. Not to be outdone, that famous Nazi femme fatale, Marilyn Monroe, wearing a skin-tight dress, took the stage at Madison Square Garden on May 19th, 1962, 10 days before his birthday, to sing Happy Birthday to President John Fitzgerald Kennedy, adding to the lore surrounding what the New York Knicks announcer calls the world's most famous arena. Yet Hillary Clinton wants to claim that a Trump rally with 30 speakers, including Donald Trump, on the 27th of October, 2024, is a Nazi rally being recreated. This is a sick woman with a twisted mind, and thank God she was never president of the United States. We have another empty basket of clowns trying to continue the destruction of America that's occurred over the past 4 years. and that's under the guise of the sock puppet, Kamala Harris. What say you, folks? Hillary Clinton, say and do anything for relevance. Nazi sympathizers recreating the Nazi rally. What, like the Democrats have done over and over again? John Paul II? Pope Francis? Frank Sinatra? This woman has lost the plot a long time ago. She herself was the 1992 Democratic National Convention when her husband accepted the nomination. Hillary, grow up. We don't fall for your nonsense. Ever since you claimed that you were named after Sir Edmund Hillary, whose name was spelled differently, and who climbed Mount Everest long after you were born. Maybe we should ask Vince Foster about this. Ooh, was that below the belt? Maybe. But she's hitting below the belt, lying about Americans and lying about a political rally at the world's most famous arena. Foot sec, as the South Africans say. Piss off, as we Americans say. Taking on the arches, Hillary. You're a has-been and you never were. Just a fraud carpetbagger all along. Go back to Wellesley, where they obviously love you. Cheers.